Another week, another solid entry into the Willow series on Disney Plus. Although this episode was a little slower than the previous episode, there's a lot more world building going on here, and we're getting a lot more in terms of sort of the fleshing out of the overall universe that we didn't get in the original film. They've got a lot more runway to work with here, and they're really using that to their advantage. It's also a really kind of I'm seeing how they're starting to pay homage to A Knight's Tale, which is a phenomenal film that I just absolutely dearly love. And the blending of modern music with these fantasy sequences definitely harkens back to that, and I really appreciate it. Although I know some people are like, but James Horner's score needs to be adhered to, and your inner child is smothering, ladies and gentlemen. You need to let that inner child free and enjoy the frolicking nature of being a kid again. Don't smother that child. Let it free. Let it be a kid again. Let it enjoy the simple things in life. Because again, this is a kid's show that we adults can also appreciate if we let ourselves. That being said, my review is not spoiler free. So if this is your first time tuning in and you've never watched one of my reviews before, you've been warned. I am going to talk about everything in the episode. I'm going to spoil all the things. So if you don't want it spoiled, walk away now. But if you're here to actually talk about it, welcome aboard. If you're new, don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that bell icon so you never miss an update. Support the channel with a membership. Options are down there. There's also a Patreon page. Other stuff we'll talk about at the end. But in the meantime, let's dive into my show notes. Again, spoiler alert. So I love the intro here. We're running away from bad guys. We've got modern kind of pop rock music going along in this chase sequence, and it really felt fun. And I think that for me is the crux of this scene. It's meant to be fun. I mentioned in the intro. Some people are upset that they're using modern music in the show. I'm not. I think that it's a great way to, as I mentioned, pay homage to A Knight's Tale, while also looking back a little bit towards that and other sequences. But to me, it's just a fun chase scene. They've modernized it for the kids of today as opposed to the kids of yesterday who are now 40 plus years old like me. But thankfully, folks like me still let their inner child enjoy things. So I had fun with it, and I thought it was great fun and loved it, especially the torching of the harpy, which I was kind of disappointed that we didn't actually burn the harpy to a crisp because as we run off into the forest, the Wildwood, we realize that the harpy is still alive with the giant, and they're still pursuing them and have been pursuing them since Nockmar. And that's the first trope of this episode. There have been quite a few tropes in this show, but I don't let that detract from the enjoyment. It is what it is. Every show has tropes, and this one uses the haunted forest or the Wildwood. And unless I'm mistaken, this is the same woods that Willow um, and everybody went into in the first film when he met um, um, Shalindria. I always forget how to pronounce her name. When she gave him the wand, because this is where the brownies are from, and there's this rumor of it being a haunted forest. People lose their minds in here. People can lose their way. But then we get in, and the very first thing that happens is Laura Dannon and Willow are kind of surrounded by butterflies. We get this sense of beauty and majesty, and it's a special magical place. But the trope here is that it's a haunted forest that people don't want to go into. And that's something that everybody, even Tolkien did that with Mirkwood. We've got haunted forests everywhere. They abound in all sorts of fantasy books. So the butterflies are a nice touch. It's a little moment of serenity here. And I really love the training sequence that we have between Elora Danan and Willow in the forest because he's trying to teach magic to her again, and she's like the power of divination and using your mind to do things, and she's like concentrating on him, and she's like, "What are you doing?" And she's like, "I'm using my mind to try to remove the stick from your butt, so you let me use the wand." And I laughed really hard at that. I thought it was hilarious. I think it's almost as good as the phenomenal line from the first episode when she was cooking, and she was telling everybody my food is phenomenal, and then Borman's eating the food, and he's like, "Oh my god, this is really good," and she leans down over him and whispers, and she's like, "Phenomenal," and I was like, "Oh, that's great." Um, Meanwhile, Prince Grayson is really, falling for Alora, and he's stressing about it, and he has this sequence with Borman in the woods, and Borman's like talking this whole sequence about, many a maiden has found her pulse quickened and knees weakened by Thraxus Relaxus Borman. And I was just like, This is great. It's just fun. It's just good fun. And I think at the end of the day, that's what's making Willow such a good show for me is the fact that it's just good, clean fun. Um, of course, very quickly here we find out that not everything is as it seems in the forest, and very quickly they are captured by a group of wild men, turned out to be bone reavers, who live in the woods. And Boorman's obviously known by them, and we get to meet the people that were chasing them on horses earlier, but also now we meet the leader of the tribe, and apparently her and Borman have a backstory, and she's talking about, he's like, I'm looking forward to things with you again, and she's like, take him to my tent and tie him up. And she's like, you're not gonna like this. He's like, I don't know, you're talking about tying me up in your tent, but um, they know each other, and we get more about Borman's backstory here because he obviously used to be a part of this tribe, and apparently went on this adventure with Mad Mardigan and somebody else to find the breastplate of Chimera, I think is what it was called. This, the relic, and um, there's mention of a troll cave, and everyone thought Borman was dead. Meanwhile, everyone's kind of captured and thrown into their individual cells. We get Grayson and Willow over here. The uh, Prince, Cat and Kit, sorry, and somehow the cat, Kit and Laura are put in a cell. Jade is taken with the leader of the encampment, and yeah, Borman is still in the tent. And while they're in Grayson and Willow, they find out that there's brownie um, homes on the wall of their encampment. So we're getting to meet brownies here, which is really cool. We also find out that Loredana stole Willow's wand, which it was interesting but also very short-lived. We'll get into that here in a bit, because I think one of the most important things here is I loved the sequence where Borman is recounting his adventure to the leader of this tribe because he's spinning this tale, but while he's spinning this tale, we're getting to see flashbacks of what actually happened, and what actually happened was completely different than the story that he tells. But I think for me, the funniest part was the shower sequence where he's like washing the slime off in the waterfall, and he's like slow motion flinging his hair back and looking at the camera and spitting water out and everything else. And it's just, does he really see himself that way? Because if he does, that is absolutely hilarious because all of his banter makes even more sense now because he actually thinks that way about himself. Um, but obviously, the way he views events, or at least the way he's telling events, is completely different from the way things actually went down. And this is when we do find out more about the relic, and he's about to say something about Mad Mardigan, but just as he's about to say it, we cut away. And then as far as the brownies go, we find out this rule, and he's having a great reunion with Willow as Alora blows up the cage with a wand. There's a fight now between Jade and the leader of the tribe, these two redheads. Um, Willow gets a map from Rule on a leaf, and then Jade gets taken to the leader of the tribe's camp. And this is when we get this backstory, which is more filler for the world in the sense that we find out that General Kale had 15 children, and she's one of them, the tribe leader, and she has this brand on the back of her neck. And it turns out that Jade also has that brand on the back of her neck. So it turns out that this is Jade's sister, and Jade is a daughter of Kale, and she was taken to Tirazline as an orphan child, a child of war, and didn't know it. And this leads to everyone being accepted by the tribe. There's a big party sequence, which is kind of cheesy, but it's meant for the kids. There's dancing and drinking and truth plums and all this other stuff. And yeah, Prince shaves his mustache and goatee off, gets a pirate rag. He's looking pretty dapper. He's trying to impress the princess. Um, Meanwhile, we get another sort of modern music sequence with Boorman trying to make his move on the redheaded tribe leader whose name escapes me, with the Crimson and Clover song, which again, this is more homage to Knight's Tale for me, and I really like it. And then Grayson's back in the back, kind of stressed out because everyone's off here dancing romantically except for him. And then there's another, he gets his own sequence with Laura Dannon, and they're talking. It's not really a romantic sequence, but it hints that there could be something in the future once he discovers who he is, because she's questioning his background, being possessed a couple of times. And then Jade professes her love for Kit, and she and Kit are about to kiss, and they're having this really romantic moment. And then Kit gets captured by a troll that comes down out of the trees, and you hear that horrific "Rah!" and you get the face of the troll, which is straight from the original film. And then there's sort of a fight sequence as multiple people get kidnapped, and Boorman takes one of them down, and we realize that a troll attack is happening on the village, and that's where the episode leaves us. Which is great. I think we're only getting 8 episodes this season, right? So obviously we're not. I don't see how we're getting to the. I mean, maybe we're going to get to the Immortal City by the end of this show. But I need to confirm that it's only 8 episodes. I think that it's only 8, but I need to confirm that. Anyway, somebody in the comments below, let me know if I'm wrong on that. But it feels like we're not going to get to the Immortal City by the end of season 1 because we're already at the end of season 5. They just got now we're going to have to rescue Kit from the trolls. We've seen the troll sequences in some of the previous preview trailers that came out leading up to the show, so we know that's going to happen. I feel like what would end up happening is we'll get to the edge of the sea and they'll get on a boat or whatever the case may be on their way to the Immortal City at the end of season 1. But I don't see us actually rescuing Prince Eric at the end of season 1. I could be wrong. I'm assuming that's with only 8 episodes. But anyway, great entry. I would give this one sort of like an 8 out of 10, which I think is what I gave last week's episode, an 8 out of 10. There was the tropiness and some of the cheesiness. It does, lend itself more to a children's show more than an adult show. And for me, that does take away just a little bit, but it's still a fun romp. I think it's a lot of fun. Great episode as always. I'm enjoying this show a lot. I think it's everything I wanted it to be. Love to hear your thoughts below. Like, subscribe, hit that bell icon, drop your comments down there. Support if you can with memberships, super chats on live streams, super thanks and uploaded videos. Don't forget the Patreon page. I'll see everybody next time. Happy viewing, everyone. Peace.